UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou came out and said recently that in his next UFC contract, he wants the ability to be able to box. This is stemming after recent news between Dana White, the UFC, and Francis Ngannou's management have been going back and forth. Dana White going as far to say Francis Ngannou's manager might not even have his best interest in mind. In my opinion, Francis Ngannou wanting to go leave the UFC to box or waste fights on his UFC contract to go and box is just a bad idea. We saw Conor McGregor do it against Floyd Mayweather, but the difference between Conor McGregor and Francis Ngannou is obvious. Conor can market and promote himself like no other fighter has been able to in recent history. Francis Ngannou couldn't sell a sandwich to a homeless man. He can't promote himself to save his life. Hell, he's 2 weeks away from defending his UFC championship belt, and I bet a lot of people didn't even know that, a lot of casual fans. Francis Ngannou, for being such a scary, imposing figure, is terrible at promoting himself. And with the UFC's ability to promote and market their fighters, and the UFC, keep in mind, has heavyweight contenders, I think is pretty deep. You got John Jones if he decides to fight. Stipe Miocic is still in the mix. Derek Lewis is there, and who Francis Ngannou is fighting, who Francis might even lose to, former training partner Ciryl Gane. So, in my opinion, the UFC heavyweight division has 4 to 5 good contenders, with young guys even coming up that I don't even know about. And contrary to boxing, where the only heavyweights I know are either 40-year-old washed-up fighters or Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. I mean, sit back and think, how many heavyweight boxers can you name off the top of your head? Exactly. It's not many. So I believe, obviously, Francis wants to go box to make money. And Francis has always been in love with boxing. If you can remember, when he first began to train, way before he was in the UFC, when he just got into France, he wanted to box. It was only through the recommendation of his trainers that he joined and started training MMA, which I think saved Francis's career. Francis Ngannou is only 6'4". With that being said, he does cut to 265. He's a massive UFC heavyweight, don't get me wrong. But if he were to step into the boxing ring, he would just be outmatched. 6'9", 320-pound Tyson Fury, who can box in any type of technique, a true masterclass boxer. In my opinion, one of the greatest, if not the greatest heavyweight of all time. And then just behind him, we saw in their trilogy fight, Deontay Wilder can hold a candle to Tyson Fury. He's right there with him. Now, he is the second best fighter right now out of the heavyweights, but it's them two and then everybody else. Deontay Wilder being 6'7" and long with power, which we've never seen. If Francis Ngannou tries to step in the boxing ring and fight Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury with Francis's lack of movement and stand-up, whether it be head, arms, or legs, I think he would walk into a punch and get knocked out viciously by either one of those boxers. And I think Dana White knows this. And Dana White doesn't want to take his fighters, which he's promoting and trying to label as the baddest men on the planet. He doesn't want them to go into a foreign sport that they're unfamiliar with and get embarrassed on national TV in front of millions and millions of fight fans. If it was up to me, if I was Dana White, I would almost be more inclined to let Francis Ngannou go and just go to another smaller MMA organization, whether it be Bellator, 1FC, or what have you. But because I would rather see just him leave and then go box if he wanted to under Bellator or another organization, than rather see him lose his shine as the UFC champion. And keep in mind, this is only if he can defend his belt against Ciryl Gane, which we've seen Ciryl Gane is no slouch. Probably the fastest and quickest heavyweight fighter we've seen in the UFC. So, with all that being said, I think it's a bad idea for Francis Ngannou to try and box. I think he should ride it out in the UFC. He just showed in his last fight that he has progressed tremendously in the wrestling and the stand-up against Stipe Miocic with that check hook that just folded Stipe like a lawn chair after Francis Ngannou showed that he could sprawl. And I think, if memory serves me correctly, he even got on top of Stipe and was beating on him for a minute. So with all that being said, I think it's in Francis's best interest to stick to the UFC and just stick to defending his belt. And maybe look into getting a new manager. You know, I'm not in there, but from what I've heard and the news coming out, it just seems pretty ugly. I hope Francis Ngannou and the UFC can figure this out. I'm a huge fan of the heavyweights. I love watching two big old MFers get in there and bang it out. But yeah, with that being said, leave a like and subscribe, comment anything you guys think that I missed, and I'll see you in the next one.